Seth Rollins says AEW name-dropping WWE is very tacky and reeks of desperation. Plus, Rollins also teases multiple superstars as his WrestleMania 38 opponent. Becky Lynch reveals her new look after getting her hair cut by Bianca Belair on Monday Night Raw this week. Plus, we have the ratings for NXT prior to Stand and Deliver. All this and more in today's WWE news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE. So let's start off talking about Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins, whenever he does an interview, and he doesn't actually realistically do a ton. He doesn't do a ton of interviews, but it's WrestleMania week, so he's going to be doing interviews. Whenever Seth Rollins does interviews, he can be a polarizing figure. He can say things that annoy people or get people talking. You know, FYI, that's the point a lot of the time for the stuff he says, but I think he believes a lot of it as well. And the first thing that no doubt will get people talking, and it has people talking, is his comments about AEW. Now, WWE superstar Seth Rollins says AEW referencing WWE on television is, quote, very tacky and looks and reeks of desperation. Recently, Rollins appeared on the Sports Media podcast with Richard Deitch and compared his recent WWE SmackDown reference to Jon Moxley to AEW referencing WWE on their program. Rollins made a reference to Moxley on the January 21 SmackDown episode during a segment with Universal Champion Roman Reigns. Rollins pointed to their history as the Shield as justification for the reference and said he heard nothing in response to the name drop backstage. He said, quote, everyone knows he's part of our history, Rollins said. You can't do Seth and Roman without Dean or Mox, whatever you want to call him. You can't do it. To ignore that part of our history just to try and put him aside and focus on Roman and Seth, the focus was Roman and Seth. That was the story, but he's a part of that. So to just ignore that and completely pretend he didn't exist is just silly. I referred to him by the name that he prefers to go by, so that's where we're at with that. I heard nothing in response to it backstage at all. Now, Rollins later compared his reference to Moxley and how AEW references WWE and various superstars on Dynamite and Rampage. He said he finds the name dropping very tacky and lowbrow and said it looks and reeks of desperation. Rollins also said AEW is doing their thing very well, but they have a long way to go to catch up to WWE. Quote, I didn't use the reference to Mox to talk down to somebody. I wasn't trying to diminish anybody's accomplishments. It wasn't like that. He's part of our story. Roman wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for him and I. The other side of the coin is the way that it can be used by those guys. They can do whatever they want. I find it very tacky and very lowbrow personally. I think it looks and reeks of desperation, and I just don't think it's anything on our television show that we need to go there and talk down about those guys. They're doing their thing. They're doing it very well. We're very happy for them. I am, at least personally. Are they at our level? No. They've got a long way to go to catch up to us, and that's fine, and they know that. They do things differently, but for me, my perspective, it's just a little step down for us to kind of use it as an insult. That's my perspective on it, but people may not share that opinion. So obviously, this will get a lot of people talking because they'll see the headline, and the headline is that he says that AEW name-dropping WWE is very tacky and it reeks of desperation. That's the headline, and that's ultimately what's getting people talking. Now, as with anything, any kind of story, when you see that headline and you go, wow, you should always read the full article. You should always find the full quote. And what he's saying there isn't necessarily wrong, in my opinion, and it's preference for preference sake. What he's basically saying there is WWE doesn't need to do it because how and why does it benefit WWE? Now, what I will say in response to that is that whilst WWE doesn't do it on television, they certainly have done it off of television, and they've done certain things to try and hurt, poke fun at, or shine a light on AEW, shall we say, when it comes to bleeding on television, right? When it comes to gory and self-mutilation, those comments, the same comments that WWE made about WCW in the 1990s, or when it comes to WWE trying to essentially throw AEW under the bus when it came to their sponsors, when it came to Domino's Pizza on TNT with the whole match with Chris Jericho and Nick Gage, or when it comes to just counter-programming for the sake of counter-programming. That's how WWE references AEW. They don't just do, but they don't do it on television, they do it off television. So I wouldn't necessarily say that WWE completely ignores AEW, because they very much don't. Even though they'll say they're not competition, they are competition because they're entertainment. It's not necessarily about pro wrestling or sports entertainment. Any form of entertainment is competition. It just so happens that AEW is much more closer in the genre to WWE, hence why they're stronger competition. They're looking for the similar sort of product, same eyeballs. That's the situation there. Now again, I know people will look at this and get really angry and discuss and all this kind of stuff, because when AEW has referenced WWE in the past, people get angry about it, saying that, oh, I can't believe they're doing it, oh, why are they doing it, blah, blah, blah. It just makes them look weak and all this kind of stuff. I'm of the philosophy, and I think some other people are, that if you're number 2, and AEW is number 2, there is WWE, frankly, most likely will always be the number 1 pro wrestling company in the world. They've just been around for too long. It's like they're McDonald's, they're whatever. They are the leader in their field, and they always will be. And when you're number 1, you don't talk about number 2, certainly on television. Now, this is WWE's practice, and I don't necessarily agree with this, of trying to sabotage number 2 on several occasions, but some could argue that's business. Some could argue WWE doesn't need to do it, and they don't need to do it, but they do it anyway. If it's not competition, why are they so threatened? I think that's a valid discussion point. But on television, WWE's number 1. They have a bigger audience, they have more money, they have more exposure, and they've been around for longer. They have way more brand and name recognition. So they're not going to talk about AEW on television. They're not. On the flip side, if you're number 2 and you're chasing number 1, you always talk smack about them on television. You always try and get them their attention. You always try and ruffle some feathers in the hope that they'll talk about you. And I know people will say, shouldn't the product speak for itself? And I think it does anyway, but that's just what happens. And to be honest with you, honestly, whenever AEW does a WWE reference or whatever, honestly, I really don't care. It doesn't bother me in the way that some people on social media get really angry about it. I mean, I went on Twitter this morning, and after watching Dynamite last night, or watching Dynamite this morning rather, I went on Twitter, and I'm just like, I can't even be bothered with it, of just how angry people are against each other because they watch a television program. That's what blows my mind at the moment. Like, social media is tribal anyway, but the tribalism that belongs between WWE fans and AEW fans is insane. Insane at this point. And don't get me wrong, there are just crazy people on both sides here. There are some crazy WWE fans and some crazy AEW fans as well, and they're just as ludicrous as each other, frankly, and going at each other going, there was a botch on television, so this is a terrible program, or WWE does this, so they're terrible, blah, blah, blah. They spend more time watching a program they don't like than the program they do like, and they're trying to, I guess, convince people that this product is bad. The problem is, people tend to make their mind up for themselves. They'll watch it or they won't. It's not referenced or influenced by whether you like it or not. Just think how wild it is. Some people have Twitter accounts dedicated to telling someone how bad a television show is. Like, I'm a big fan of Dexter. Do you see like those Dexter accounts going, oh, the acting in this scene was terrible. I can't believe Dexter. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, what? This is wild. It's embarrassing. That's really what it is. It's embarrassing. So people will get talking again. I think that his justification for it is good. I mean, Rollins is actually very complimentary about AEW during the interview. Again, if you care to read the whole thing, saying that what they're doing well. He just doesn't feel like they need to do it. But it is what it is, and that's just the state of affairs when it comes to social media and WWE versus AEW at this point. It really is just insane. Speaking of Rollins, he's done multiple teases who could be his opponent for WrestleMania 38. Seth Rollins has teased the likes of Veer, Shane McMahon, Mustafa Ali, John Cena, WWE Hall of Famer Rob Van Dam, and Scott Steiner as his potential opponents this Saturday at WrestleMania 38. Of course, none of them are going to be his opponent. It's been widely reported that Cody Rhodes will be the mystery opponent who will answer Rollins' challenge. But he's been doing this all on social media and all this kind of stuff, and it has been quite fun. Obviously, there was a rumor that Shane McMahon's been brought to WrestleMania 38 weekend, and he, I mean, imagine. I mean, look, to be honest, when it was WrestleMania 34 and everyone thought Cena was going to be facing Undertaker, Elias came out. Who's to say that Shane wouldn't come out? Who's to say that wouldn't happen? Now, some of the names that he's teased, Via, we know Via's going to be on Raw, and I'm curious as to what that looks like, because I have just the worst feeling in the pit of my stomach that WWE might be doing some kind of curveball here, or an attempt at comedy. Shane McMahon is actually a real possibility, so don't rule that one out. Mustafa Ali is laughable because he's just sitting out his contract. He has no interest in appearing on WWE television, let alone WrestleMania. John Cena is not going to be at WrestleMania, and Van Damme isn't even cleared to compete. And Scott Steiner, it's a miracle he's going in the Hall of Fame, frankly, considering he was persona non grata just a couple of years ago. So Rollins having a bit of fun with it on social media, and that's all good to hype up the big event on Saturday. Becky Lynch, you can see right there, has a new look, and she has a new look because of Bianca Belair, of course. Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch has revealed a new hairstyle just days before WrestleMania 38. On Raw on Monday, it featured an angle where Becky Lynch tried to cut Bianca Belair's braid off with a pair of scissors. This backfired, and Belair snipped some of Lynch's hair and left her seething in the middle of the ring. In an update, Lynch took to Twitter yesterday afternoon and revealed her new look. She said, "Joke's on you, Bianca Belair. I look cool AF. Hashtag WrestleMania." Now, I mentioned before that I felt that this was all done to have a new look for Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch wanted to do a new look, I think, to continue this development of the heel character, to move away from the man into big-time Becks and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like that's the look she's wanted to go for. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if even this look evolves. I think this look will probably change. I mean, traditionally, Becky Lynch has always had this sort of orangey, sort of gingery hair kind of look. I wouldn't be shocked if she goes in a different direction to that. Who's to say she doesn't dye it black or dye it blonde? You know, I think at this point Becky Lynch is trying to get so far away from what she was popular for into something completely different. So I think in addition to the look of it changing, I wouldn't be shocked if the color changes as well. But when did this become a hairdressing show? Finally, we have the ratings for NXT's Go Home edition of the show heading into Stand and Deliver this weekend. Tuesday's live Stand and Deliver Go Home edition of NXT 2.0 drew 626,000 viewers on the USA Network, according to Nielsen via Showbuzz Daily. This is down slightly, 0.31% from last week's number, but it's essentially flat. Tuesday's NXT drew a 0.14 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic, which is even from last week also. NXT ranked number 22 for the night in the cable top 150 with that key demo rating, which is up from last week's 29 ranking. It ranks 70 in terms of viewership on cable this week, which again is even from last week's episode as well. Tuesday's NXT drew the 4th best audience of the year so far and the best key demo viewership since the New Year's Evil episode on January 4. So I think they'll be relatively happy with that. This week's NXT viewership was down 4.28% from the episode that aired 1 year ago, while the 18 to 49 key demo rating was down 33.33% from the show that aired 1 year ago. That episode did go head-to-head with AEW Dynamite, but even the year-on-year stuff, to be honest, it's not even really worth comparison, because a year ago I think they did care about the ratings, and now I don't think they necessarily do, honestly, that much. I think, as the report went previously from Andrew Zarian of the Matman Pro Wrestling podcast, that I think ultimately what WWE cares about and USA Network cares about, is it in the 600 range? Fine. We don't care. We're not really, it's not a competition anymore. NXT serves a purpose to, obviously for USA Network, to have people watching a show and to have regular content every single week, but the main purpose is to develop talent. This time last year and prior to that, NXT was somewhat about developing talent, sure, but it was a third brand. Now its function has changed to what I guess originally it was meant to be, which was a developmental brand, and that's ultimately what WWE truly cares about, in my opinion. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.